I'm joined on Drive this afternoon by Imam Yahya Ibrahim, Imam and Assistant Principal at the Langford Islamic College, also the Chaplain at Curtin University. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Geoff. It's good to hear from you again.
It's good to speak to you. Our condolences and sympathies are with you today. I understand WA Police were pretty quick to offer imams and mosques and worshippers support if they needed it today.
Absolutely. Also, my condolences, to yourself and the greater community. This isn't something that I think the Islamic community will bear on its own. I think it's more a moment of self-reflection and a little bit of pause at some of the divisive commentary that we've kind of become desensitized to. We just consider it, it's just some people rambling things, and, they don't really mean anything by it when they really say these kind of crazy things. It's just, crazy talk, really. But the reality is that this is something that is not a shock, but it's more of a wake-up call and a rally call, and the intent of hate is actually a pivot point for us to show love and compassion, and that which was intending to pull us apart, I believe, is actually going to draw us very, very much closer together. The police in WA have always been at the forefront. They've always been, very, one step ahead of community engagement. They have a very active community engagement group who reach out and contact, not in just moments of trial and hardship, but whenever there is a need and whenever there isn't a need. And I think that's really the commitment that you see. There's this open flow of interchange and mutual respect and love for this great state and country that we live in. It is a moment of condolence for us all, really.
Yeah. Among Perth's Muslim community, how are people responding to such an act of terror? Indeed, even the kids at your own school.
Well, look, the reality is, Geoff, I was scheduled to lead the prayer at the University of Western Australia. On the roster every month I'll give one of the talks there for the Friday sermon, which is when this brutal, devilish gunman entered upon, people praying in prostrated positions at a mosque that's never locked its door. Because the concept of a mosque is the house of God. Anyone can enter. Anyone can find shelter, and anyone can, find a place of solace, Muslim or non-Muslim. And you could walk into any mosque in WA and you'll find the same kind of treatment that I've just mentioned to you. You can just enter it. It's meant to be an abode of peace and a place of quiet and self-reflection. So I canceled my talk at UWA and rather somebody else, I'm sure one of the students, stood up on the day. And I stayed behind to speak to the 1,000 students that I lead as an imam at the Langford Islamic College to tell them that, you're going to go home. And if you haven't already heard and if your teachers haven't already mentioned, but I'm sure your parents will talk to you and you'll see it on the news, that this atrocity has occurred. And, I spoke about 3 important values that we can take from it. The first is a Quranic maxim. It's a law within our tradition, and it says, "Idfa billati hiya ahsan," push back against aggression with compassion. فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ. Perhaps that the one who has shown aggression, that your pushback with compassion may turn them over into a near and dear friend. So I said that's the first, moment of reflection. Second, I said, the world, as you live it, is a very dynamic and ever-changing place. And although something may happen so far away, I do want you to be cautious, and I want you to be careful when you get on your buses today and when you're walking with your mom in a shopping center. And, these kind of things, you need to be a little bit more alert, because sadly there are people who copycat, and there are unbalanced and imbalanced people, whether it's a mental state or a spiritual state or just out of aggression.
On Drive this afternoon, my guest is Yahya Ibrahim, the Imam and Assistant Principal at Langford Islamic College. We're speaking to him today, obviously, about these terrible events in New Zealand. Yahya, I wonder sometimes if you feel as if a calm descends and people get to breathe more easily, only for an event like this to undermine people's sense of security and safety.
I think it's something where we all kind of feel fear. When the Melbourne attacks happened, and that poor gentleman, may he find rest. The cafe owner, I believe his name was Salvatore. I'm not really sure.
Mm-hmm.
All of us grieved, and we were my family and I. We were holidaying overseas, but the pain of it, that it was as if I was his next door neighbor and I lost a friend. And I think compassion is the thing that must glue us together. And the intent of anyone who does these kind of acts. Terrorism has no religion, it has no country, and it has no fellowship. It is an ideology of hate that is irrespective of whatever its underpinning claim is.
Well, then let me just ask you this, because people will seek to reassure us by saying, look, this bloke and these other people, they were just mad zealots, But I wonder if it does raise questions about the manner in which people do become radicalised, and how in this country those hateful views have been brought from the fringes closer to a validated mainstream. Do you think that has happened to some extent?
I think all of us, we know something that we should denounce. And sometimes we'll hear a friend say something, a coworker will say something, or someone will say something that sounds sarcastic, or and we'll just dismiss it as it was an off-the-cuff comment. People have said worse things, or, they don't really mean that. Maybe you just had too much to drink, or, it's not something that, that's really there. But I think some of us are, we hear things that are not right. And I commend WA Police for putting that same statement where they said, if you see something, hear something, report it to the national hotline. Most people have this idea that you report the national hotline, they'll put up a picture of a guy like me, a guy who looks kind of Middle Eastern, who's a little bit heavy set with a little bit of a beard, and that's the guy you call the hotline for. But the reality is that there's somebody who came from another country into a city that was traumatized by earthquakes and so much tragedy, and saw that this is a weak point. This is where I'm going to commit this atrocity. It wasn't something that wasn't unknown. He was putting pictures on it on Twitter for 2 days. He's, written manifestos and so on. But people who knew just were not interested. Mm. And I think we all need to do better. I know within our community it's a regular theme that, we will give no shelter, no harbor to anyone who seeks any division and any divisiveness to people in our community or our broader community. This is a place that I love and my children love, and I want them to grow old here and to outlive me in it. And it's not going to help when we kind of turn away from people who we don't think are the conventional crazies of society.
We wish you well and your community well at a very difficult time, and thank you for speaking to me today.
Thank you for giving me this space, Geoff. It's always a pleasure, and I enjoy listening to you, and Godspeed.